We have a few GTI groups happening around the world at the moment. I wanted to make a little video that as you're going over the materials in the next few weeks, you keep this information also in your mind, and maybe it will help you make some interesting connections. I'm basically sharing with you how I have been using and learning to use capoeira for my own personal development, and that is the idea of this project, right? Showing you how the same tools we teach teachers are obviously the same tools we use to teach ourselves, because you cannot teach somebody else something that you don't have within you. And the first thing we do is the work on ourselves, and then later, if we feel like sharing it, we can only share the work we're doing on ourselves. The first 3 weeks of the course, they sort of create the foundation for everything. It's where we give our holy trinity, which is safety, fun, and learn. I'm going to go to a desk view here so you can see. Our foundation to everything is, of course, safety. We say that the student should come to class healthy and go home healthier. And everything we do, even before we start teaching capoeira, is making sure that the ambience is safe. When it comes to my own personal development, obviously, it's very hard to get into development when I don't feel safe. Obviously, for example, if I'm dealing with a lot of sickness or with a lot of issues, it's very hard to get into a process of personal development. That's why we start with safety. Safety when you train, safety with the stages, safety with understanding where you're at, your age, your body, your goals. And of course, now the whole Capoeira world is expanding the talk about safety into community safety, into use of power, and all those issues, which are very, very important. And that's why the week one of everything is safety. If you've been growing up in one of the groups where this has been on the flag for over 30 years, you say, maybe I don't even have to mention it. But I think it's always good to start in the point number one, in safety. Then week number two, you're going to be talking a little bit about fun. And fun is not the perfect word, it's the word we're using for now. But basically, we're speaking about the fact that once I'm safe and I start exploring and I start developing, the quicker I get on the road of pleasure, on the road of pleasantness, on the road of enjoyment, the farther probably I'm going to go. We say that fun is even a prerequisite to learning, or let's say to effective learning. I'm not talking about maybe learning in school where it doesn't have to be fun because nobody really cares, because you just have to pass the test and they pass the package on to the next part of the laboratory. But when we're talking about real internal learning, being safe and finding a place of fun is sort of the requisite for learning. So we say safety plus fun will naturally equal learning, especially let's say you take a kid and you create an atmosphere in your capoeira class which is safe and enjoyable. You will see that almost learning happens just like in nature. Yeah? Everything will blossom naturally. You don't have to force the seed to blossom. All you have to do is make sure there is a soil and there is moisture and there is sun, and then the learning will happen naturally. It's true with kids classes, and it's true uh, with us. What's interesting is that when there is no safety, when we have safety, the next logical step is fun. Right? When there is no safety, and when we are in a life-threatening situation, when everything goes into emergency mode, then many times we get the shadow of fun, right? Because every aspect has a positive and a negative, a light and a shadow, yin and yang. Sort of fun without safety is panic, and that's where we have the comes from the I think the Greek or the Roman mythology. The shadow of fun is panic, which we see lately all too much around us. And it's very understandable because when people feel threatened, their next logical step is to panic. as you go through the materials, you're going to hear a lot. The course that is recorded was recorded for people that already sort of are in a stage of passing on the information to other people. But all you have to do is listen to it, and every time it says you teach your students, you think in your mind, I teach myself, because it all starts with learning. And learning, people today, there's whole library shelves about different types of learning. And people are going to say, oh, because I'm more an oral person and I am more a visual learner and I see images and I am good with memory. There's all these subcategories of learning. But the truth is, the only kind of learning that ever existed and that will ever exist is self learning. That anything you've ever learned in your life, you learned by yourself. And maybe there was things in your environment that facilitated, maybe there was things in the environment that guided you, that helped you, but you did the learning by yourself. And it's time to come back to that understanding that it's all about me and my process. And that will be the first 3 weeks. Let's continue just one more point. The fourth week is gonna be all about the senses, because once you once you understand this triangle and you create a good base, the triangle is a very strong shape in nature. You see that all the jiu-jitsu groups, their logos are in triangles because this is a very strong foundation. And also most techniques, when you play capoeira, every time you have 3 points of contact with the floor, you're creating a kind of a triangle, a 3D triangle. So you're going to see also, as part of your safety, is to recognize the most stable positions, and that will enable you to do the movement in the most natural way, and then you can play for many years and you're not going against the joints, against the muscles, against the ligaments, against gravity. Everything we perceive in our life is through our senses. If we disconnect all our senses, for example, like when we go to sleep, then we are somewhere else. Maybe we're even someone else. But when we open our eyes, the second we open our eyes, we're perceiving the world through our senses. So it's important to remember that. And in any martial art, any form of practice is a very good tool to hone your senses and to become able to not only perceive more, but also to perceive the, how do I say this? And the more you train, obviously, you're gonna see more. So if we just take it to a capoeira game, a skilled capoeiristas, he sees more options in the game. He sees more opportunities. He sees more angles. He sees more strategies because he's more trained. He has the same two eyes as the other player, but his eyes, of course, they see more stuff. So that naturally happens. We see more opportunities. We see more perspectives the more we train in anything. And capoeira here has the extra benefit that it gives us also the social plane. You're training your social abilities every roda, every game, every class. The social aspect adds a whole other dimension that maybe other martial arts have a little bit less. But anyway, everything we perceive is through our senses. In week number 4 and 5, when we talk about coaching and teaching to the senses, we remind ourselves that we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. We perceive the world through our personal senses, and as we hone our senses, maybe what we see can also change. And then we got the square, and the square connects us to the 5th week, which is going to be master the move. Once we've created the foundation for self-learning, and once we understand that we're going to learn through our senses, through what we see, now we need some kind of system or tool to start working. And here we have what we call it master the move, but in other areas, people have different names for it. For example, Matias de Stefano, he calls it he talks about it like this, and I find it very interesting. He says the phases are expression, which lead us to experimentation, which leads us to integration, which leads us to transcendence, to transcend. In the level 1 instructor course, we simplify it. We call it learn, practice, train to master the move. First, we learn it with our senses. Then we practice it by ourselves. We experiment with different, then we go into the, once we practice it, we feel comfortable with it, it's safe, it's starting to become automatic. We go into the training phase. The training phase, we experiment with different aspects of the technique. So if it's a kick, I might experiment for a while with kicking fast, and I might experiment for a while with kicking very slow, and I might experiment for a while with kicking accurate in a racket, and I might experiment for a while with how do I use the kick to gain advantage, and I might experience for a while to do the kick in an artistic way and to start expressing emotions through the kick, right? All those little trainings are getting me into the cycle of master the move, which is of course endless. This cycle is actually, it's more an ascension, yeah, like a spiral. Every time you finish the square, you express yourself, you experiment with different aspects of that expression. Then you integrate what you needed, the lessons you learned, specifically your lessons, you integrate it into yourself, and by doing that, you transcend to the next round. And then you're going to do it again, but you're going to do it with a slight different angle. You might go here now, and then you go here, and then you go here, and then you go here. And as you do that process over and over with the tool that you chose for your life, if you chose capoeira, use capoeira. If you chose yoga, use yoga. As you do that, it slowly becomes the circle, mastering the move over and over. And how many times do we do it? We master the techniques, the basic ones. Then we start mastering the strategies. Then the strategies. Then we master the music, and we master the song, and we master the ritual. By then we go back and we have to remaster the moves because our body has changed by now. Our personality has also changed. If your personality, your personal reality has changed, your game has to change, because your game has to be an expression of who you are now, not of who you were 10 years ago, or not of who your teacher was or your lineage was. You respect where you came from, you take all the lessons, but you have to, in the end, integrate them into your personality and express it. I hope that this will give you maybe some motivation to look at the materials with some fresh eyes, and we are going to have some more talks soon.